What if the deepest pain you've ever felt could become the key to your greatest awakening? Welcome to Life Lessons, where we uncover stories that don't just touch the heart but transform the soul. Today, we're stepping back over 2,500 years to a dusty city in ancient India, to meet a mother named Kisa Gautami, a woman whose world shattered when she lost the one thing that gave her life meaning. Clutching her dead son in her arms, she wandered through despair, begging for a miracle that could defy death itself. But what she found wasn't a cure for her child, it was a truth so profound it turned her tears into wisdom. Can a story this old still hold answers for the losses we face today? Let's dive in and find out. Picture this: the bustling streets of Savatthi, a city alive with the hum of merchants haggling, farmers toiling, and monks in saffron robes walking silently with their alms bowls. It's a place where life and death dance in constant rhythm, yet no one speaks of the shadow that looms over every home. Into this world steps Kisa Gautami, her name meaning weak, a frail figure born into poverty, her body as fragile as her early years. Life hadn't been kind to her, but one day it offered a glimmer of hope. She married into a wealthy family. You'd think that would be her happy ending, right? Not quite. Her in-laws sneered at her lowly roots, treating her like an outsider in her own home. She was invisible, until she gave birth to a son. That boy changed everything. With his bright eyes and innocent laughter, he wasn't just her joy, he was her shield. Suddenly, the family that scorned her began to call her mother, their cold glances softening with respect. For Kisa Gautami, this child was more than a son, he was her purpose, her proof that she belonged. But life, as it so often does, had other plans. One ordinary day, when the boy was just learning to stumble on tiny feet, a fever struck. It came fast and merciless, burning through his small frame. Within days, his laughter faded, his eyes closed, and Kisa Gautami's world went dark. Refusing to let go, she held his lifeless body close, whispering desperate promises to wake him. She knocked on doors, pleaded with neighbors, her voice breaking as she begged for a cure. The villagers pitied her, but no one could help. "He's gone," they said. She wouldn't listen, driven by a mother's love and a flicker of hope. She heard of a man, a teacher, a healer, an enlightened one, who might hold the power to bring her son back. His name was the Buddha, and he was her last chance. What happened next wasn't just a meeting, it was a journey that would unravel one of life's deepest truths. Stay with us as we explore how Kisa Gautami's pain led her to a lesson that echoes through time, a lesson that might just change the way you see your own struggles. The story of Kisa Gautami. During the time of the Buddha, the city of Savatthi was a bustling place, filled with people from all walks of life, wealthy merchants, poor farmers, and monks begging for alms. Among them lived Kisa Gautami, a frail, slender woman born into a poor family, so poor that her name, Kisa, meaning weak in Pali, reflected her delicate frame. Life had never been easy for her, but fate seemed to smile when she married a young man from a wealthy family. Yet, her husband's family didn't welcome her. They saw her as a poor girl, mocking her and treating her coldly. Everything changed when Kisa Gautami gave birth to a son, a healthy, charming baby with bright eyes and a joyful smile. The child became her greatest treasure and a lucky charm that shifted her in-laws' attitude. They began to respect her, calling her the mother of the child. For the first time, Kisa Gautami felt her life had meaning. But that happiness was as fragile as the wind. One day, when the boy had just begun to toddle, he fell ill. A sudden fever struck, his tiny body burning hot. And within days, those bright eyes closed forever. The boy died, leaving Kisa-Gautami in unbearable agony. Pain and despair. Kisa-Gautami couldn't accept the truth. Clutching her son's lifeless body, she whispered. "You're just sleeping, aren't you? Mommy will find a way to wake you up." She ignored the tears streaming down her face and the pitying looks from her neighbors. Barefoot, she wandered the village, knocking on every door, her voice trembling. "Please. Does anyone have medicine to save my son? He's just sick, I beg you." The villagers looked at her and shook their heads. An old woman tried to console her. "Child, the boy is gone. Let him go." But Kisa-Gautami screamed. "No. My son isn't dead. You don't understand." She kept going, holding the body that grew colder by the hour, her hands shaking from exhaustion. The villagers whispered among themselves. "She's lost her mind. No one can help her now." Finally, an elderly man who had once heard the Buddha speak said gently, "Gautami, I can't help you. But there's someone who might. Go to the Jetavana monastery and find the Buddha. He's an enlightened being, maybe he has a way." Meeting the Buddha. With a flicker of hope, Kisa-Gautami hurried to the Jetavana monastery, where the Buddha was teaching his disciples. The evening light bathed the quiet forest, birds chirping softly as the breeze rustled the leaves. The Buddha sat beneath a tree, his face serene, his eyes radiating compassion. Before him were hundreds of people, monks and lay people, listening to his words like they were sipping sweet nectar. Kisa-Gautami rushed in, her clothes torn, hair disheveled, feet caked with dust. She collapsed to her knees, placing her son's body before the Buddha, sobbing uncontrollably. "Sir, please save my son. He's everything to me. I've heard you have miraculous powers, please bring him back to life." The disciples watched, some with tears in their eyes, but no one spoke. The Buddha remained silent for a moment, his gentle gaze resting on the grieving mother. Then, in a warm, steady voice, he said, "I understand your pain, Gautami. I will help you. But first, go into Savatthi and bring me a white mustard seed from a household where no one has ever died. Bring it back to me." Kisa-Gautami looked up, her red-rimmed eyes sparkling with hope. She stood quickly and said, "I'll do it right away, sir." Clutching her son, she left the monastery without hesitation. The quest for the mustard seed. The sky darkened. But Kisa-Gautami didn't stop. She knocked on the first door, a wealthy merchant's home. A woman answered, asking, "What do you need at this hour?" "I need a white mustard seed." Gautami replied urgently. "But has anyone in your house ever died?" The woman sighed, "Yes, my father passed away 2 years ago." "But why do you need the seed?" Gautami shook her head, "No. It won't do. I need it from a house where no one has died." She moved on to the next house, a farmer's home. The husband opened the door and said, "We have mustard seeds. But my daughter died of hunger last year." Gautami turned away, muttering, "No, no." The third house, the fourth, and dozens more, the answers were the same. An old lady said, "My husband died 10 years ago." A young man told her, "My brother was bitten by a snake in the fields." A child pointed to a corner, "Grandma fell asleep and never woke up." Each closed door stabbed at her fading hope. The moon rose high, casting silver light on the dusty road. Exhausted, she sank to the ground, clutching her son, gasping for breath. Suddenly, she looked into his closed eyes, then up at the sky. A realization struck her. No home escapes death. No one can hold on to their loved ones forever. Tears fell again. But this time not from despair, from awakening. Gently, she laid her son's body on the ground, stroking his small face one last time, whispering, "I'm sorry, my love. Mommy can't keep you." Return to the Buddha. The next morning, Kisa Gautami returned to Jetavana. She no longer carried her son, she had left him at the cemetery outside the city, where others buried their loved ones. Her hands were empty, but her eyes were brighter, calmer. She knelt before the Buddha, hands clasped, and said, "Sir, I went through the whole city. But I couldn't find a mustard seed from a home untouched by death. I understand now, death is something no one can escape." The Buddha nodded, his voice soft as a breeze. "That's right, Gautami. Everything born must pass away. That is the law of impermanence. Pain comes from clinging to what cannot be held. You've seen the truth, now let your heart be free." Kisa Gautami wept. But these were tears of release. She asked the Buddha to let her join his order. He agreed, and she became a nun in his community. Under his guidance, she practiced mindfulness, let go of craving, and eventually attained the state of an arahant, an enlightened being, fully liberated from suffering. The deeper meaning. The story of Kisa Gautami and the mustard seed isn't just a touching tale of loss, it carries profound layers of Buddhist wisdom, the Buddha's skillful teaching, and lessons for us all. Let's break it down. 1. Impermanence, Anicca. Kisa Gautami's life was a series of changes, from poverty to marriage, from rejection to acceptance. Then from joy to sorrow when her son died. His death showed that everything born must fade, nothing lasts forever. The Buddha didn't just tell her, "Your son is gone, accept it." Instead, even loved ones, and eases our pain. Today, when we lose something precious, a loved one, a job, our health, this story reminds us to embrace change rather than fight it. 2. Letting go as the key to freedom. At first, Kisa Gautami clung to her son's body, refusing reality out of love and attachment. Only when she saw death's inevitability did she let go, physically by laying him down, and mentally by releasing false hope. This brought her peace and the path to enlightenment. The Buddha taught that suffering, dukkha, stems from craving, tanha, wanting to hold on to what can't be kept. Her journey with the mustard seed was a confrontation with reality. And letting go was her turning point to liberation. We, too, suffer when we cling to grudges, fears, or regrets. This story urges us to practice letting go, not as indifference, but as acceptance for a lighter life. 3. Wisdom and compassion in the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha didn't judge Kisa Gautami, dismiss her pain, or offer false miracles. He gave her a seemingly simple task, find a mustard seed, that was really a profound lesson in disguise. He knew she'd only understand by experiencing it herself. His approach blended wisdom, knowing impermanence, with compassion, feeling her grief. He didn't force truth on her but guided her to see it. This shows how his teaching adapts to each person's needs. For us, it's a lesson, sometimes, instead of empty advice. We should help others find answers through their own journey with patience and empathy. 4. The journey from pain to enlightenment. Kisagami started in despair but ended in enlightenment as an arahant. From a frantic mother, she became a liberated saint. Her story mirrors the Buddha's Eightfold Path: right view, seeing impermanence, right intention, reflecting on reality, and right concentration, finding peace. Pain isn't the end, it can be a beginning if we channel it wisely. Anyone, even in the darkest moments, can find awakening. Life brings suffering, but like Kisagami, we can turn adversity into growth and deeper meaning. 5. The universal truth. Searching for the mustard seed, Kisagami realized she wasn't alone, every family shared her loss. From personal grief, she opened her heart to humanity's shared struggle. The Buddha taught that suffering isn't just ours, it's universal. This understanding freed her from selfish pain, sparking compassion and awakening. It's the root of loving kindness, metta, in Buddhism, caring for all without distinction. When we feel alone in hardship, this story shows we're not. Connecting with others' pain can heal our own. The story of Kisagami is a gem in the Buddha's teachings, showing us impermanence, life changes, nothing lasts. Letting go, freedom lies in release, not clinging. Wisdom and compassion, the Buddha's gentle guidance is a model of understanding. The path to enlightenment. Pain can lead to light if we learn from it. Universality, we all share this human journey of birth and death. Conclusion. And so ends the extraordinary journey of Kisagami, a mother who walked through the darkest valley of grief and emerged into the light of wisdom. What began as a desperate quest to defy death with a single mustard seed turned into something far greater, a revelation that reshaped her entire existence. She didn't find a miracle to bring her son back, but she uncovered a truth that set her free, a truth that echoes across centuries and speaks to us even now. This isn't just a dusty tale from 500 years ago, it's a mirror reflecting our own struggles, a quiet whisper reminding us that pain doesn't have to be the end. Think about it. Kisagami started as a woman broken by loss. Her arms aching from clinging to a child she couldn't save. But through the Buddha's gentle guidance, she saw what we so often miss, that everything we love, everything we hold dear, is fleeting. The homes she visited, each marked by death, taught her that suffering isn't hers alone, it's a thread woven into the fabric of every life. And in that realization, she found the courage to let go, not out of defeat, but out of understanding. She laid her son to rest, not with bitterness, but with peace, and from that moment, her path shifted. She didn't just survive her grief, she transcended it, becoming an enlightened being, an arahant, free from the chains of sorrow. What does this mean for us? Kisagami's story isn't locked in the past, it's a living lesson. Life will break us all at some point, it's inevitable. A loved one leaves, a dream fades, a piece of ourselves slips away. But here's the beauty, within that shattering lies a choice. We can cling tighter, like she did at first, and let pain define us. Or we can open our hands, like she learned to do, and let loss teach us. Impermanence isn't a curse, it's a teacher. Letting go isn't weakness, it's strength. And suffering, when faced with honesty, can lead us not just to healing, but to something greater, a deeper, truer way to live. So, I ask you, what's the mustard seed in your life? What pain are you carrying, hoping for a miracle to erase it? Maybe it's time to see it differently, not as a burden to escape, but as a doorway to grow through. Kisa Gotami's tears became her awakening. What could yours become? Let's talk about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Life Lessons so you don't miss more stories that light the way. Thank you for joining us today. See you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring how to turn life's hardest moments into our greatest lessons.